Hello and welcome to MLW Confusion. I'm your host Rob Cameron, bringing you all that you may or may not need to know about Major League Wrestling and its television programming. Well, of course, it used to be the norm. Now, it's just kind of whenever MLW does stuff, but the important thing is there is some news coming into this week. In addition to that, since there's no MLW programming, I brought a special guest into the studio. I had the pleasure to sit down with indie wrestling up-and-comer based out of Eastern Ohio, Eastern Ohio. My geography is terrible. Or the Pennsylvania area. He is Hardway, Sam Holloway. We talk a variety of topics, and man, oh man, I am in name-dropping mode tonight. So bear with us on that one, folks. But it was a lot of fun to talk to him. Like, the dude's got a future ahead of him, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But of course, as I said, before we even get to that, we got some news. It looks like Satoshi Kojima is going to continue his record of making the MLW Heavyweight Championship a World Heavyweight Championship as he goes to Costa Rica to defend the title on 8/31 against a gentleman named Ares. He's probably not the more famous variations of Ares, so whether Ares, that's been rocking with Gringo Loco, or the Swiss-born wrestler that was part of Swiss Money holding tag teaming with Claudio Castagnoli, of all people. But Kojima is going to wrestle for Costa Rica Wrestling Embassy, defending the MLW Championship down there. So, not familiar with the promotion, not familiar with Ares, but this is cool. This is what myself and the guys at the UWN have been really hammering down, is that, you allow your wrestlers, in this case MLW allows the wrestlers to wrestle all over the country and all over the world, for Christ's sake, and you don't hear much about it on MLW's front. This has changed a wee bit with the Torneo Cibernetico in CMLL, and they've kind of covered Kojima going to CMLL as well as part of Cozy Max. But as a whole, MLW's not good at promoting their wrestlers going out and doing cool wrestling things, because there's a whole world of professional wrestling out there outside of MLW, and obviously outside of WWE, TNA, and AEW as well, that their wrestlers and their champions are out there, working their tails off, bringing a heightened sense of awareness to the brand, and MLW doesn't seem to capitalize on it. So I'm glad that they're allowing this match to happen for the championship, and that they're actively promoting it as well. That being said, moving on, speaking of Kojima, he is a part of the main event at Fightland. That is going to be September 14th at the center stage in Atlanta, Georgia, and he has been announced to be battling Mads Kruger. Of course, Kojima's had some issues with Kruger and Contra for the better part of this year, for the most part, or at least throughout the summer, with Contra taking out a batch of Kojima's friends, most recently Cozy Max teammate Okamura. Dare I say, though, are we looking at a title change? Is Contra going to nab the World Heavyweight Championship? Now, don't get me wrong, I am a Kojima boy, but, I'm down for this. Contra really needs to, needs something in, the main... I'm running out of way how I want to phrase this, but, I feel like Contra's been kind of doing their own thing, and MLW's been slowly integrating them into the main stuff, but a lot of the Contra stuff seems peripheral to what is going on, what they're doing doesn't affect the main product so much. This is obviously, with a victory here, we have no choice than to pay attention to Contra, and by sheer star power alone, this variation of Contra is nothing to sneeze at, already holding the featherweight championship and bringing in Minoru Suzuki, who happens to actually be challenging for the tag team titles here shortly as well, so we will see how that goes. Getting closer, though, we are looking at Summer of the Beasts. That is the 29th of August, Melrose Ballroom, New York City. 2 matches have been announced, the first of which is a scramble match, 4-person scramble match, featuring the return, like a bunch of returns for the most part. Little Guido is back, so is Nolo Catano, Jimmy Lloyd, and then debuting for MLW is LSG. So I'm really interested to just, like, they got these random names. Like, it looked like Kitano was going to be doing something. Obviously, they brought in the new FBI at one point with Ray Jazz, and they didn't, like, they were there for some entertaining losses for a cup of coffee, but didn't do a whole lot with them. So then, of course, Lloyd's been in and out with variations of the Second Gear crew, dealing with the former Calling. And, well, LSG I'm not quite as familiar with, so I'm gonna figure out his game going into Summer of the Beasts, and excited to see what he can do as well. Obviously, he's not going to be a slouch because they're going to throw him right into the wolves in this scramble match. Speaking of being thrown into the wolves, another match for Summer of the Beast has been announced as Brett Ryan Goslin, fresh off his win against Jake Christ in a new alliance with Bobby Fish, so that's odd but interesting, down for it, takes on the intrepid traveler Paul London, a gentleman with 20 years experience at high levels as taking part in early Ring of Honor, former WWE Tag Team Champion, part of the Lucha Underground roster. You know, the man's been everywhere, and he's coming back to MLW. So, like, I hope London does well, but obviously this shows a lot of faith in BRG, who is becoming, a very excellent, if nothing else, character worker, because, man, oh man, I want to punch him in the face because his face is so gosh darn punchable. So hopefully I can vicariously live through Paul London at Summer of the Beasts. Of course, also announced for that show, the full card as of this taping is as follows. Opera Cup quarterfinals, Kenta takes on Akira. Cozy Max, aka Satoshi Kojira, and Okamura takes on the Contra unit represented by Akira Kwan and Minoru Suzuki. More Opera Cup quarterfinal action as Mystico battles Atlantis. Janai Kai defends the MLW World Featherweight Championship against Hanako. Matt Riddle, takes on Matthew Justice with Bill Alfonso. Timothy Thatcher makes his return battling Bobby Fish, and then, of course, the aforementioned Paul London versus BRG. Miyu Yamashito returns and gets a rematch with Delmi Exo. Another quarterfinal match and possible sleeper hit of the night as Alex Kane fights Bad Dude Tito. And then, of course, we are also looking at the debut of the New Age Andersons, Brock, and CW, in addition to the announced Scramble match. So, lots of stuff going on this coming week. So big week for MLW, in addition to the CMLL Torneo Cibernetico as well. So that is August 29th. It's going to be a party. So, speaking of partying, as I said, I got to sit down with Sam Holloway. Cool talk with that. Let's not waste too much more time. Let's take a word from the sponsors, get an energy drink, and whatever else it is you do. I'll be back with Sam Holloway. If you're like me, sometimes you need a pick-me-up to get you through the day. I drink Ray's Energy for that pickup. Ray's comes in a bunch of different flavors, and more recently Italian Ice, which is great, by the way. And it contains no sugar, so there's no crash after you drink it. And really, best of all, if you go through me and go to repsports.com, use my code CASS, you get 15% off your order. So, also, be like Cass, drink Ray's Energy. All right, everyone, we are back. As I said at the top of the show, we have a special guest in studio today. It is Hardway, Sam Holloway. Sam, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Rob. How are you doing? I'm good.
I'm doing pretty darn good myself. Thank you for coming on the show, especially for the quick turnaround overall. Usually I got to schedule these things a bit out more, but hey, if we can bang them out ASAP, I'm happy.
Right.
But we'll start with the usual podcast tropes. I know, it's super original. What got you into this wacky world of professional wrestling? Where did your fandom start?
Yeah, my fandom started at a very young age. Me being 24 years old, my golden years of being a fan were 2005 to 2010. And then obviously with growing up, you kind of grow out of wrestling, grow more into sports. And then sometime throughout my senior year of high school, while about almost going to college football, I decided to turn everything around and go to wrestling school. And then we've kind of been here since. Today's my 2-year anniversary, so we just keep rolling.
Well, happy anniversary. So you're a lapsed fan. What brought you back into professional wrestling and then bought it so much that you kind of like put all of your other plans on hold to do wrestling school?
Yeah, so it actually was the Hardy Boys returning to WrestleMania. I believe it was in 2018 or 2019. I forgot that they were even a thing, and then obviously with YouTube nowadays, I was able to go back and watch everything they've done while they were gone, especially like in TNA, and then that also made me realize that what the independent scene is, and it kinda they showed me that there's an avenue in professional wrestling, and they kind of inspired me to take that journey.
Right on. Like that's the thing. It's like it never ceases to amaze me as I'm old and jaded that the like people don't realize that there's a world of professional wrestling outside of the WWE umbrella, and now while the AEW umbrella as well. I mean TNA. Yeah, I mean they're okay. They're still going strong, but
Yeah.
there's a whole wealth of professional wrestling out there, and
Yeah,
I
I
think
really had no idea.
uh,
I had no idea other than WWE growing up.
yeah, and that's fair. I mean, I used to be the guy to kind of like give my parents the rundown of like new faces when they come to the WWE because I was big into like the PWI 500 like when I was
Nice.
like coming out of high school and like I didn't buy PWI the rest of the year but like here's my you know little mini encyclopedia of like 500 names of wrestling and of course those they ran the tiers of like actual WWE guys to guys who were just waiting to be called up to guys on the indie scene.
Right,
um
I love that. I love that.
but now it is crazy. And of course, now, like looking back at like 2024, like we have wrestling at our fingertips all the bloody time, even outside of that umbrella. But
Yeah.
that's that's me starting to get on soapbox, and that's not. I have a podcast for this. I don't need to have my guests listen to this. Um, so so the Hardy Boys coming back kind of brought you back. Well, brought you back
Dude.
as a fan, and I find that interesting, kind of given that you're a big dude. Uh,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's kind of there. I mean, outside of some of the things, they're kind of the antithesis of what you kind of do in the ring at your size. Um, but I want to touch on kind of the side things here. So, where did you get trained at? If you're willing to talk about the where and like how did you choose that specific school?
Yeah, so I'm based out of Akron, Ohio. So there is quite a bit of schools in the Northeast Ohio area. Um, I was trained out of the AIW Academy, Absolute Intense Wrestling. I will say that wasn't the first school I visited. I visited a couple schools. What made me decide AIW though is because they were the most upfront with me when it came to debuting. A lot of promotions wanted me to debut that very weekend where in AIW they mentioned that it's going to take a year of training before you debut. So once they told me that, I realized that they actually cared more about their students, and I think that my future would have been best staying with AIW.
That that blows my mind that they're like this weekend you can be on the show like I'm thinking like are they trying to carny you a bit like are they going to give you like a real spot in the show or are they just kind of like lying and saying like yeah you have a spot in the show and then here's your black t-shirt kid and just stand there
Yeah,
and look menacing but like
right. We'll never
that's
know. We'll never know. It's
but
probably just
like
for like a push for family tickets or something, but we'll
yeah,
never
like
know.
I the sad thing is like all like for everything like we see wrestling, it could be either one of those things. They just might be you're a big kid. Just go out there and look menacing, and we can you can have the lead bad guy hide behind you or whatnot.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so going into AIW, and obviously that's kind of been your home since your career started. Who did you work under? Did it's fairly recent, so Johnny Gargano's come and gone by that time, right? Was it Dominic Guarini?
Yeah, it was Dominic Guarini and Derek Dillinger were my main two trainers, and then I will give credit to just retired Josh Prohibition. During some seasons, he was able to come in and train. And then I also got some training on just how to be a big dude from like people like Joshua Bishop.
Right on, the intense icon.
Yeah,
And I mean, we'll cover this here in a bit too. I'm always like foreshadowing things, but like you've had tangles with both those guys, and actually Bishop, I do want to bring up something that I did think was hilarious. Well, whatever, we'll just bring up the hilarious part now. So fast
Yeah.
forward a wee bit of time, just to get it out of the way. I joke about how little research I actually do for this podcast, but I do go through look things just enough to make me seem stupider than what I am. But I found Calling All Skeletons 2022.
Oh
I'm
no.
assuming the debut of Hilljack is what
Yeah, I believe
what
that's the debut. I believe.
I can't find any other matches under the Hilljack gimmick, but I talk about that just briefly. Like what was I know that I will say for those of you unaware, like as much as I'm embarrassing now, this was a Halloween based show. Like everybody seemed to have everybody had costumes, everybody was doing characters outside of their normal gimmick, and Sam here was Hilljack taking on a swamp monster.
Right. So the character of Hilljack, I actually had no creation of. The creator of Hilljack is actually Josh Bishop and Filthy Tom Lawler. I guess that they just made him up, just hanging out before show, and they've been pushing the character for, I want to say, 3 or 4 years. And then the Halloween show came around. I believe that was like 4 months into the business for me, and I got a text from Josh like, "Hey, you're Hilljack," and then he sent me about a 4-paragraph text of what Hilljack is and what he wears. But to like keep it simple, he is someone from the Mississippi swamps that loves pigs. That's where you get the constant sueys from, and he's a big '80s band guy. And his biggest rival is a swamp monster, who I cannot tell you who plays the swamp monster. You just have to check it out for yourself and find out.
But I like I that kind of stuff is like my one of my favorite levels of wrestling is just the stuff that's just enough tongue in cheek, but still like you're putting on a decent show, but it's still just there's a lot of just kind of like goofy character work in it. And I'm not gonna lie, I laughed entirely too hard when you like acknowledged Swamp Man as like your mortal enemy, like the start. You've been
Yeah.
plaguing me for years now. Like,
Yeah, the rivalry's still going on. At least, I would say, at least once a year, you'll see Hilljack roaming around Ohio.
and now that and since you said that was a filthy Tom Lawler idea, like that actually makes a lot more sense now.
Right? Right?
Like
Yeah.
that's something I could just see Filthy Tom doing, like in general.
Honestly,
Like that's
I'm honored that they trusted me with the Hilljack character because it seemed very sacred to them, and they've been pushing for it for many years. So it's
I
cool
mean,
that I'm able to be Hilljack.
but that was awesome. I did enjoy it, even if maybe you didn't so much. Um,
It was fun. It was definitely fun.
it, it has its place, even if it's not what your what your
Exactly.
plans are in the minute. Like there's a whole lot of crazy stuff in wrestling, even if it's a one-off. Um,
Right.
but keeping with talking about AIW, like as we said, this has been your home promotion. You've pretty much been there since the start of your career, and they've entrusted you enough. Like in what 2 years in the business, just now, two
Yep.
years in the business, and they've put you up against like Matt Cardona, well, Filthy Tom Lawler. You've had run-ins with both Josh Bishop and Derek Dillinger, you said had hands in trading you. Being so young in the business, what's it like having like being put in the ring in those situations?
I believe they're very motivating. In AIW, there is a lot of sink or swim moments, and that can really define you and it also build you as a professional wrestler. So at AIW, they really test you if you're actually going to sink and swim in some moments. People in the locker room and also the fans, I believe, watching those moments happen because they know what the situation is. It's if this person swims, they will continue to grow as someone in this company. If they sink, they're going to be stagnant for a month or two. So you being able to get those tests are always just motivating, and they're also very stressful and fun at the same time.
And I mean, I think in addition to the a sink or swim action, we'll not actually cut that out. But having like let's say just enough faith for in the creative to put you in that position. I mean, it's one thing, and I'm not doing this to slag on them, but to be with Derek Dillinger, Josh Bishop, who are amazing in ring, and
Right.
then there's Matt Cardona. And say what we can say what we want about him, but like ever since he's been released from the WWE, dude's been killing it out there, and is
Yeah.
also he's very protective of his brand as well. So I think it's awesome to that everyone thought highly enough of you to have at least that one match. I think that's
Yeah.
a
Very,
huge pat on the
very
back.
surreal moment. Yeah, very surreal moment, especially because that was like the first big test for me, and it really came out of nowhere for me. But being in the ring with Matt Cardona was easily probably one of the top highlights of my career so far, just on a learning aspect and how much he was able to teach me in that 20 minutes in the ring.
And that's something I've noticed with him too, that he's does a lot of the seminar stuff, so he's willing to kind of give back. I can't speak for his in ring like seminars, but I know he talks about character branding, etc. Did he do that while he was there in AIW, or did he was just there for the match?
So he never did a exact seminar with us, but we had him in so many times. And Matt Cardona is such a locker room guy. If you had questions for him when he was not at his merch stand, he would gladly answer them. So it was all just about catching him at the right time and asking him questions and not being afraid to approach him, I would say.
As someone that's been at his level, I think that's probably like the most valuable part of having, say, a Matt Cardona in your locker room, in addition to everybody else. And that's not just putting him a pedestal above everyone else. AIW does a great job of bringing in guys who've been all over the world, because you've also been in the ring with, like, say, Paul London, who's
Yep.
also been a WWE traveler. Of course, we've referenced Filthy Tom Lawler, who's he's never made it to the big time per se, but he's a pretty well-known name in independent
One of the
wrestling as
best.
well. And like this, whether the wife knows it or not, this is a Filthy Tom household. I've said it on other shows. Like, he can do no wrong with me.
Yeah,
Um,
he's the best.
he's, um, I also kind of, and we'll segue this to one of the points I wanted to go back into the beginning. But you also had a run in, well, with Filthy Tom against Jeff Jarrett's squad in AIW as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a two-parter. One, what again, working with a legend such as Jeff Jarrett, what was that like? And then the back-ended question on that: what was it like being in the ring with Satnam Singh?
So I'll cover Jeff Jarrett first. Easily the easiest night of my life. Um, all you have to do is listen to him. And he knew every point he wanted to get across. He knew the story. He did so much work to put into that match. So he made it easy for everyone. We just had to listen to him. And I will say, him just doing the impromptu strut on me in the ring was one of the funniest and coolest moments of my career so far. And then working with Satnam Singh was awesome, but also kind of terrifying when you think about reality, because he made me look so small in that ring, and he is just a massive individual where if he really just wanted to grab you by your arms and just rip them off, he easily could. He's that big. I remember shaking his hand and I lost my hand, and I was genuinely concerned for like 2 seconds about where my hand went.
Going to the Jarrett point first, like I think that's great. Like, I think we're finally as fans kind of like acknowledging how good Jeff really is, now that he's kind of like taken a step back, and he's not, we'll call it a reign of terror, so, when he was in NWA TNA and whatnot, just to kind of like see what a ring general he is and willing to work
Yeah.
with everyone. But really, like, going with the Satnam Singh route, like, just like an honest question, like, for those of anyone who's listening to this podcast is not familiar with Sam's work. Sam is 6'9", 6'10", is a big dude,
Right.
and on the indies, you're not seeing that many guys that size. So, like, how often do you like run into anyone that's like your size and bigger?
Very, very rarely. I believe it's been one other time, Early in my career, I stepped in the ring with PB Smooth, who now is the NWA Exodus Midwest champion. I believe I'm getting that title right. But he is a legit 7 foot, and he was definitely the only guy that I looked up to. And I'd say that that's it for right now. I think he's the only one. But then
Like,
I step in the ring with Satnam, and my forehead's at his chin, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. I was taken
right.
back by it for a second.
Like, no, that's something like I've talked with Smooth. I've had him on the podcast, but we didn't talk about we talked briefly about his size, but it's more that it was more like to go on a tangent. It was more about how he likes to portray himself in lieu of being so big, because he likes to play that playboy image up instead of just stand there and be like, "Grr, I'm huge."
Right,
And we
right.
kind of just like left it at that. So like yeah, he's huge. You see him in the ring, um, but we talked just very briefly about just how no one was willing to just do anything with him outside of be Grr until fairly recently, and but we didn't go into the detail of like how weird that is, like on the independent scene, where like by normal standards, getting I don't need the soapbox for this, but like by normal person standards, like I'm a decent sized dude. One of my podcast pals like says I'm the biggest guy in the room, which is usually it's the truth, but I'm not that big. But like you got 6 inches on me easily, and like I go to indie shows, and like most of the guys like the taller guys are maybe my height, and then like
Yeah.
everybody else is smaller. So like I can't imagine like how jarring it'd be to finally kind of get to work with someone your size, or the same size as you.
Right. It's usually a lot of fun, just being able to work with them because you just don't get to do it often. Like, I would say probably 90% of the matches I have are with people that are under 6 foot, and that's fine. I love working with people that are smaller than me, but it's always fun to have someone that's my size to work with just because it's a change up.
And we could like make a joke of I think it's Big Show and Kane that was breaking out cruiserweight chain wrestling in one of their matches. It
Yes.
was just
Yeah.
amazing watching those two guys do it, because
It's like
they never had to do it. Like
right. It's like Kane and A Train's a good one, and then also like the Keith Lee Dijak matches. Like those are fun matches to watch where it's big guys just doing crazy athletic things.
yeah. And Dijak's just on a whole level on his own when it comes to some like those crazy things.
Oh,
Uh,
insane. Crazy.
but yeah. Oh, do you see some of those things that say like a Dijak's doing go like I can do that? Because I know like you take to the air occasionally, usually big splash form, but
Right.
do you think about like Tope con Hilo? I can do that tonight.
I can yeah, I can do those things. For some reason I find the big splash in the dive more safer, but lately obviously I haven't been caught a couple times, so it's whatever. We'll figure it out.
Well, and I'm not going to advocate, be the specific advocate to do it, because also how many guys are 6'5", two or 6'9", 270 too. So you don't
Right.
need to do it. You don't
Yeah,
need to
right.
do it. But if you can break it out as like super finish or whatever, there you go.
Right.
But continuing kind of going on with the height thing, who are the smallest guys you've had to work with?
Oh, Swoggle. Swoggle's the second, and the shortest is Microman, where I was in a scramble-esque match with Microman where eventually we just teamed up and beat everybody up. But
Well,
those two are the smallest,
say
for
well,
sure.
teaming up with Microman and beating everyone, like that's how that is just how the universe works.
Exactly, right. We had
Also
to do it.
Microman household Microman household as well, which puts me in
Yes.
which puts me in a vocal minority. But so like how different is it to work with those two, like given like the size difference?
Um, Swoggle is extremely easy to work with just because he's a pro and he knows his body and his style. So it's again just listening to him as a vet, and he knows exactly what the crowd wants. So he's very easy to work with. I would say Microman was also easy to work with once you get past the language barrier because he doesn't speak a lick of English, and I don't want to be blowing his spot, but the way he shows you things are through his TikToks. So he'll just search Microman on TikTok, and he'll just show you a sequence or a move, and then he'll just give you a thumbs up, and you say yeah, and then you just go out there and do the move.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it was
That
really
is
cool.
that's like, I've heard a lot of things just, talking with people in and out of the business, and I think this is the first time, the first time in a wrestling aspect where someone was just using TikTok as,
Yeah,
one, like how to generate spots, and then two, to kind of like bridge the language barrier.
right. Yeah,
That
it was very cool. I was not expecting him just to pull up TikTok and have like a bunch of his highlights ready to go.
that is, I mean, that's crazy, but that's insanely smart. Like,
Oh yeah,
there's a chance I probably wouldn't have thought about that. I probably would
no
have just
shot.
like
Yeah,
gestured wildly and then got angry when no one knew what I was talking about.
I'd say that's what
Which
we were
I do
doing for a while, and then he just
that.
pulled out his phone. I'm like, why weren't we doing this 20 minutes ago?
Even though that nowadays I bring up my magic box, like even like Google Translates on here, we could probably try to have a conversation if we were forced to that way. But now, like, actually TikTok is so much better because you can see the thing in action.
Exactly.
So okay, so I'm gonna put you on the spot with this one though. Who would you rather work with? Someone who's the 6 inches taller than you, or say your Swoggles and Microman?
Oh, wow. I mean, they're really short. Um, I think I would go the 6 inches taller just because that allows me to open my repertoire of moves I don't get to do often. So people would just see a different style out of me with working someone bigger.
I buy that. Honestly, in my head, that's kind of where I was thinking too, because you don't see big guys necessarily be in peril like
Hmm.
that often in a way that's uber realistic, or or if they do, it's either it's the standard, chop them out at the knees, and working someone bigger, you can kind of tell a for your character a slightly different story match
Right.
wise.
Exactly.
Um, while we're kind of like talking to like name dropping things, this one isn't AIW related, but you had a chance to team with Ricky Morton, NWA WCW legend Ricky Morton,
I
in a
did.
tag team match.
I did.
Like, how big of a deal was that in your head?
It was pretty surreal just because of how relaxed he was. I don't know if you did you see the match or did you just hear about the match?
I have not seen the match. I didn't have time
Okay.
for that yet.
So, just for context, it was at Appalachian Championship Wrestling. It was on a Thursday in a Buffalo Wild Wings parking lot.
It makes
In
it
the
even
rain.
better.
In the rain. So it didn't rain the whole show, and then once me and Ricky got in there, it was a downpour of rain. So Ricky was just like, "Let's just have fun, kid." And then we went about 10 minutes of just doing all the spots, having a blast, and talking to talking crap to the bad guys, and then we went home. I mean, it was a pretty easy day, to be honest with you. I mean, didn't call one thing. I mean, we just went out there and worked, which was pretty cool. And then just hearing a bunch of old Mid South stories from Ricky Morton the whole day. It was a fun day.
I like that's the stuff. Yeah, if you're in the business, I feel like you live for. Like, the dude's got a head full of knowledge. We're nearing what, like 50 years in the business for him now. I think like he's been wrestling before I was born, and I'm teetering on middle aged old myself. But I just like, and hearing the stories about like just how he's doing things now, like the renaissance he's kind of had like the last handful of years, where he's just kind of coming back in and just
Oh yeah, he's
giving
definitely
back and just doing just kind of whatever he wants now.
he's definitely had like two or three careers, just separate careers throughout his time in wrestling. So like now this is kind of his teaching stage where he just gets to ride around and just teach whatever kids that are on the show with him. And he just sits down and talks with them until it's his time, his music hits pretty much, and then he just goes on out there.
Goes out, does Ricky Morton things, and still just has the crowd eating out of his hand.
Yeah, yeah,
That,
exactly.
that's why I love watching him and Kerry together, because Kerry's being a slime ball, and then Ricky's just still back there, just kind of like, yeah,
Smiling. Yeah.
everyone like you get like the crowd starts getting mixed because Ricky's over there being Ricky, and you're not gonna boo Ricky. Like,
No, you can't.
why would you do that? But but going back, just trying to just avoid playing the name drop game.
Yeah.
Um, you know, again, you are pretty young into your career, and you've like been kind of right on the cusp of some big things within the independent scene.
Yeah.
A couple of big tournaments, and then you got one coming up as well. But like focusing on, you were in the J-Lit. Was it last year?
Yes, last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you made it to the finals on that, and then you made it to the finals of the Ray Day.
The Ray
Ray Day
Day Elistiro. Sorry.
Estio. I mean, I could pull it up in big letters, but I
Right.
like just watched it the other day. Like, just being again like so early in your career, just being at the cusp of some of these major tournaments. Like, how does that feel? Just to be like already going to like the finals. Obviously, the goal is to win and get take that accolade home, but just already being at that point where you're staring at the finals.
Yeah, it's really an honor that these promoters and these promotions have faith and trust in me to wrestle multiple matches on their show, and being able to they trust me to perform in multi-man matches and then also in a singles match later in the night. So it's just kind of a blessing that they just trust me with their show and being able to wrestle multiple times on one show.
And what's the tournament that's coming up soon? Like, King is it King? Not King of the. Was it King of the Indies? I'm sorry.
Oh,
This one I didn't write down.
the Super Indie tournament in at IWC. That one is
Yeah, yeah,
I want to say it's in October 5th, and then
yeah.
also
I'm sorry. It's one of those like I saw your name announced for it, like only like wrote down tournament exclamation point and then didn't follow it up. So
right.
I'm willing to talk about Hilljack and know a lot about Hilljack for no good reason. Cool super indie tournament coming up.
Yeah,
More
yeah, I
accolades?
know.
Yeah, yep, I'm not gonna pay attention to
I
that.
know some names that are in it are. I know one for sure that's announced is Elijah, or formerly known as Elias. I know he'll be in the tournament, and then there's a couple people I believe like Gannon Jones Jr., who's big with Duke Davis as PME throughout the Midwest, or not PME, I'm sorry, TME throughout the Midwest, and then Zach Nystrom's in it as well. And there's a couple big names that have yet to be announced, to my understanding. So unfortunately, I can't announce them here.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I mean, if we're just gonna play the name game, FKA Elias,
Right,
like
exactly. He's the man.
like a big name to start the party off with. Um, well, yeah. So we've done a lot of this podcast, just like name dropping,
Right.
and mostly name dropping guys that like I've been, that I think is entertaining, or I think that's a good name to attach to yours by having a match with.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
about you? Like, what matches with what opponents are you most proud of? Like, regardless of quote unquote name value.
Yeah. So the matches I would say I'm most proud of, there's definitely the Ray Delastilo at ETU, just because I went into that show that I wanted to make a name for myself in the New Jersey, in the Mecca area, and for ETU. So that show meant a lot to me. Um, I also had a string of singles matches that I cared a lot about, starting with Isaiah Broner. I believe it was in April for AIW for the Absolute Championship. A lot of care went to that match, and I thought it came out very well, storyline wise. Um, I had a match in May with Joshua Bishop, also in AIW, where I kind of went out of my comfort zone a little bit, where it was more of a hardcore match, something I've never really done before. But I believe that in that sink or swim moment, I was able to swim. And I think I benefited from doing one of those matches because I did learn a lot being in there with Josh. And then I had one in June with the Prize City OG, Alec Price, where he's someone that's just on a completely different level right now. And how unorthodox he is in the ring, it's a lot. But if you can hang with him, I believe that you could hang with anyone on the indies because there's no one that's doing it like him right now.
Oh, I agree. Like I don't know how he isn't a bigger name, to be
Yeah,
frank, just because he is so. He's not like anything else out there. Like, yes, you could say like, oh, he does X, Y, Z, but like the way he does things is very much his own. Like he's just
yeah,
this weird ball of kinetic energy.
yeah. At this point, he's kind of like on his own wavelength right now. Like no one's doing things in the ring like Alec Price does.
But going back to the ETU and the Raid ASTU, how bad did you bugger up your shoulder in that first match? That looked like it hurt.
Oh, it hurt. It wasn't that bad. It was definitely a little knotted up for a couple days, but I mean, it's good now. Like I got all the motion and everything, but it definitely landed right on it, and it was my fault. Um, I overjumped everyone, so they really didn't have an opportunity to catch me. I'm just lucky that I landed on my shoulder and not my face and neck. But it sucked for about 3 days, but we're good now.
Okay. Well, I mean, you wrestled again, like that
Yeah,
same
right.
show. So obviously, like it wasn't too bad that they didn't like have to change anything up or anything like that. But I'm just
Exactly.
it's one of those things like I watched and I did physically wince at that one
Yeah,
because yeah,
right.
you watched you go like the people that were catching you kind of caught your tummy, and
Mhm.
then unfortunately,
Gravity.
gravity still works there, and none of them again are your size,
No.
so them touching your stomach at least just slowed you down a wee bit.
Right.
But just like saw that, I'm like, oh, that was right, like literally on the shoulder. I and like you took a minute to be like and then you just got up and it's like whoa, and
Right,
went
right,
back
yeah.
to like went back to
Had to
killing
show
things.
the
I'm like,
fire.
okay. Like that was like welcome to the wacky world of pro wrestling. Like, oh, maybe I dislocated my shoulder or separated it. Whatever, we got
Right.
we
We'll
got
find out in a couple
we got
hours.
another we got another 5 minutes to go through. It's fine. I got adrenaline right now. Uh,
Exactly.
but well, and then they made that as part of the story for the finals
Right,
too.
yeah.
So you had a target kind of on your back. I mean, upper shoulder, upper back
On the
anyway.
shoulder, on the side.
But yeah. So we've talked about kind of your accolades up to this point. Obviously, we name drop a lot of people. Talked about the size game. Like, what's next for Sam Holloway? Where do you see yourself going? Whether it's 5 years, 1 year, 6 months. Like, what is the plan going forth?
Um, I will go with the short-term goal first. Um, right now through social media and just bookings, it appears that I'm getting some momentum. So my goal within the next couple months is just to remain healthy, um, take it day by day, and then just continue to get better and to show the fans, the promoters, that I'm someone on the independent scene. And then I guess long term goal is to be on TV and to make this a living.
Do you have like any sort of preference on when you say be on TV? Do you have a preference, or do you see yourself as an AEW guy, a WWE guy, even like say New Japan guy, or just we'll say whomever will give you the best deal in terms of finances and creative freedom?
I'm a whatever guy. I mean, whatever guy
Okay.
wants me. I just want to be wanted. Doesn't matter where.
Wow, that's fair. Hey, that's fair. But we do have those guys where like, especially, I mean, I'll use WWE example because it's been around since, well, in various forms since like 1982. Like, oh, WrestleMania is the thing,
Hmm.
and so a lot of guys have this nostalgia, just the nostalgia button of like, well, WWE is a thing, and then now we do have the alternatives now and making really good money for AEW
Right.
as
Yeah.
well. And obviously, that's where the tagline is where the best wrestles. So I mean, we got our conflicting things there, and then of course Japan's always got its is held in
It's
high regards
Japan.
too.
Yeah.
So
It's sweet.
yeah, so I'm not going to trash any decision because I'm a Brinks trucks guy. Like if you're gonna give me a pile full of cash, like
All right.
I'm easily swayed by that. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, there are caveats, obviously, but so that being said, uh, like you are, as you put it, you are picking up momentum out east. Like
Mhm.
obviously, AIW is kind of like one of those indies that flies under the radar, but like everyone, like okay, everyone who watches it loves. Like
Yeah,
it's like the who's who does wander through those doors, even
yeah.
if they're not like the top guys. ETU is starting to make waves out east as well. So I think I think the current trajectory English is looking good.
Uh,
That being said, where can we find you in the next couple of weeks, and where can we find you on social media?
yeah, so all socials are Sam H Holloway, Holloway spelled HOLLO way, and then I will be at Greektown Wrestling this Friday in Toronto, where I'll be stepping in the ring with the Maharaja Raj Deji and big time Bill Collier for the Greektown Cup. That's a promotion that I've been working with a lot now. Channing Decker's the man there. Um, so that's definitely a show you should check out on Fight. And then this Saturday is Wrestle Rager at AIW in Cleveland, where that show is not live, unfortunately, but if you're in the Cleveland area, it is the most ECW like show that I've ever been a part of or seen. Um, as of last night, I just got announced for ETU's All I Want 3 in September. And I believe that are all of the shows that are announced at the moment. So I would keep it at those ones for now.
All right. And do you have merch or online store set
Not
your way?
yet. The online
Yeah.
store is coming, so just pay attention to my X/Twitter when that will be announced.
Okay, and I'll have the social links in the descriptor of this here video. Um, so that being said, Sam, it's been great having you on the show. I've been keeping my eye on you for just for a wee bit, though. I'm not gonna lie, like a couple of the big shows I've watched recently, aka AIW versus the World, and Summer Madness 2, ETU. Like
Yeah.
okay, I gotta get this guy on the show. So, but thank you for popping on and talking with me for a bit and dealing with all my weird questions and random ass name dropping things.
No, absolutely. Rob, I had a great time. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
MLW Confusion is a weekly podcast that's written and performed by Rob Kammer and hosted by Spotify for podcasters. MLW Confusion is part of the Urban Wrestling Network, and you can check them out and check out the Major League Pod on YouTube at Urban Wrestling NW. The background music for this section is Ruined by Day, performed by Alan Schroeder. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to support, please like, subscribe, and tell your friends, family, and enemies. Leaving a review is also helpful. Word of mouth of advertisement is very important for small podcasts such as this. Social media links can be found in the description, but Twitter and Instagram are at the Nova of Cass, TheNovaofCass, and Facebook is at MLW Confusion, all one word. If you'd like to support monetarily and help upgrade my equipment, please check out my virtual chip jar at ko-fi.com/Casanova. Or if you prefer more bang for your buck, you can go to patreon.com/Casanova, CASSONOVA, where for as little as $2, backers get access to the podcast early and without those pesky ads, plus other exclusive content. So join the crew that is headed up by Keith Wynn, Alan Schroeder, Alex McCarthy, and Elenia, and check it out. You can also find t-shirts, coffee mugs, and other merch at the Confusion Podcast on Teespring. Also, be sure to check out the description to find some affiliate links for, well, WWE merch, coffee machines, ice makers, and much more. For business inquiries such as ads and sponsorships, please email rzkammer, that's Kamerer, at comcast.net. Thank you for listening.